section of the second semester. However, in practice, you could see that we are left with one more topic, that is the Unit 4, which has to do with the basic components of the school curriculum. And so this evening, I'm here to take you through that. And so stay glued to your seats and let's have an interaction. At a point, the telephone lines will be opened for you to also phone through to share your thoughts. And so the lines, you can keep them now so that when they are activated, you can phone through. And it's still the same number, 050-392-3158. 050-392-3158. This is the number for your WhatsApp messages, SMS, and then it's a studio line for phone calls as well. Right. So this evening, what we are to do is basically about the basic components of the school curriculum. The basic components of the school curriculum. Now, by the time we are done with this evening's radio lecture, we expect that you'll be able to identify the four basic components of the school curriculum. You'll be able to identify them. And then secondly, I expect that by the time we are done with this interaction, you'll be able to explain what constitutes each of these four components of the school curriculum. And so that is it. When we are done, ask yourself whether you are able to identify the four basic components, and then two, whether you are able to explain what each of the four components of the school curriculum constitutes. Right. So the school curriculum, and here, when we mention curriculum, the school curriculum, I want you to focus on the official curriculum. The official curriculum. So what is the official curriculum here? We are referring to the curriculum that government recommends through its agencies and agents to be used to teach a group of students at a particular level. So right now, we are using the standards-based curriculum. That's it. And so talking about the curriculum, because we are talking about the components of the school curriculum, the basic components of the school curriculum, the question is, what is the school curriculum? What is the curriculum we are referring to here? Because we know that the curriculum can be in various forms. We are referring to the official curriculum. And talking about official curriculum, I want you to focus on the syllabus. The syllabus. Or maybe the course outline, the course curriculum, the course outline. Yes. So our attention should be on the syllabus or the course outline. Right. And so when we are talking about the basic components of the school curriculum, there are four. And it begins with purpose. So the first component of the school curriculum is purpose. The second is content. Content. Others call it subject matter. Then the next one is learning experiences. That is the third component. Learning experiences. Others call it subject, methods, simply methods or methods of teaching. But the correct name is learning experiences. It's quite comprehensive, learning experiences. Right. Then the last component is evaluation. Evaluation. Right. When we started, I said today the topic is basic components of the school curriculum. So one may ask, if we are talking about the four basic components, it implies that there are others, but we are not referring to them. We are not discussing them this evening. We are only interested in the basic ones. These basic ones are common. So they are common elements of the curriculum or components of the curriculum. Right. The other components that are not part of these basic or common components may be curriculum rationale, the rationale. So when you open the syllabus, you may see rationale, and we can have a write-up under the rationale. Or you may have philosophy of the curriculum, and you could also have write-up under the philosophy. And then you could also have profile dimension. It's also another component that you could have in the school curriculum. However, these three that I have mentioned, they are not part of the common ones, because you may have it in curriculum A and you may not have in curriculum B. You may have it in the math curriculum and you may not have, you may have, let's say, the rationale in the math curriculum, but you may not have the rationale in the English language curriculum. And so those ones are not common. They are not basic. You will not see them in every curriculum. You will see them in some, you will not see them in others. For example, in the objective-based curriculum that just elapsed for the standard-based curriculum to come, we have a component called the rationale, and there's a write-up under that. But in this new curriculum, the standard-based curriculum, we have rationale there as a component. We also have philosophy as well, also there. And so that is why we are not discussing those ones. We are discussing those that when you take any official curriculum, any syllabus, you see these four basic components of the curriculum. Right. So we are having a real lecture. This is Radio UDB 98.3 FM. You may have to keep the lines so that when they are activated, you can phone through 050-392-3158. So kindly keep that. Right. So we are continuing. Now that we have identified the four basic components, being purpose, content, learning experiences, and evaluation, let's go into each of them and look at what they constitute. Right. So the first component, which has to do with the purpose of the curriculum, purpose. The purpose is said to be the first component of the curriculum. It is said to be the first component of the curriculum because in developing a new curriculum, it is the first thing you want to deal with, because the purpose answers the question, why? So why the curriculum? Now, if you want to develop a new curriculum in a certain area, the first question we'll ask is why? And so the purpose answers the question, why? In other words, the why of the curriculum is the purpose. The why of the curriculum is its purpose, or the purpose. Right. So we said that it is the first component in developing the school curriculum. Now, it is the first when you are developing a new curriculum. And so you need to first begin with why. However, if you are reviewing an existing curriculum and the issue has to do with other components, the other three components, and not the purpose, you may not touch the purpose. You may go straight forward to be dealing with perhaps the evaluation or the learning experiences. And so to say that the first component of curriculum development is statement of purpose, it is true. However, where you are reviewing an existing curriculum, you may not touch the purpose. You may be dealing with the other component that may be the source of the problem for which it needs to be reviewed. Right. So, what are the purposes, or in what forms can we have these purposes? We say that the purpose can demonstrate itself as aims, goals, and objectives. Aims, goals, and objectives. So when purpose is stated, it may be stated as aims, or it may be stated as goals, or it may be stated as objectives. So we need to know the differences among these three forms by which the purpose of the curriculum could be stated. And so we'll take them one after the other and explain. Now we talk of aim. Aim is the purpose of the curriculum that is broad, and it is stated to be achieved in the long term. And so its achievement can be seen or done in the long term. So it is a long-term purpose which can be attained in the long term. And so we say that it is stated such a way that it does not really have a certain level of specificity. It is not specific. It is broad. So we say the terms that are used to state aims are amorphous. 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 The spelling of amorphous is A-M-O-R-P-H-O-U-S. Amorphous. So we use amorphous terms to state aims. Why? Because aims are like vision. They are like visions or aspirations, mission that you intend to achieve at the end of a certain long period of event or activity. Right. So, for example, if you say that the learner will be able to appreciate the need to be a good citizen, this could be attained in the long term, because appreciating the need to be a good citizen could take a long time for that to happen. If you want to know why that is so, we all know that we are not supposed to throw rubbish anywhere in the environment. We are supposed to keep the environment clean. It is part of the elements of being a good citizen. But how many of us are conscious enough not to throw rubbish around or mess up the environment? We still do it. So you see that even though you are in the university, you have come all the way from KG all the way up to the university level, you don't care throwing rubbish around, trashes around. It doesn't really push you to keep it and put it at the right place. It means that sense of citizenship, sense of responsibility in keeping the environment clean is not something that could be attained once in teaching. It could take a long period of time before that element is built in us. Right. So we use terms like learn, know, understand, appreciate. These terms, we say they are amorphous. Why are they amorphous? They are amorphous because they are not directly measurable. They are not directly measurable. Why is this so? For instance, if you say, by the end of this program, the student will be able to demonstrate knowledge of good citizenship, or demonstrate the practice of good citizenship, knowledge of it. So you show knowledge. You see that if you are done with the program and you are assessing learners, you will not ask the question, say question 1, know the essence of the essence of being the good citizen. You will not put the question like that, because the word know is not directly measurable. You need some other observable behavioral terms to be able to pose a question for the learner to undertake that task, to demonstrate that the learner knows. But using these terms, like the learner will be able to learn, the learner will be able to know, the learner will be able to understand, the learner will be able to appreciate. These terms, which are not directly measurable, they are acceptable in stating aims, because aims are achieved only in the long term. By the time we see that aims are achieved, these terms we could see them, we could feel them, we could really appreciate them, we could really measure them by that time. Right? So they are amorphous. They are not directly measurable, just like that. Right? So that is purpose. That is purpose. Right? I must say that the statement of these purposes, forms of purposes, being aims, goals, and objectives, the way they are stated in curriculum and teaching are different from the way they are stated in real life or ordinary life. For example, in life, you may say that I want to be a successful person in future, or I want to be a renowned politician. How renowned is a renowned politician? You see that that expression or word renowned is not really measurable directly. How do you tell that this person is renowned? Because most people who are renowned don't even feel that they are really renowned. Because when they attain it, they still want to attain more. So the aims are like Maslow's theory of needs, the apex of Maslow's theory of needs, being self-actualization. That is one thing we can liken to aims. Right. So that is aims. Now let's come to goals. We said that in stating aims, we state them such that they can be attained in the long term. But for goals, they are attained in the medium term. So they are medium-term purposes, which are designed to be attained in the medium term. We may not be able to put time on long term. How long is long term and how medium is medium term? We may not be able to put time to it, or years or months to it. But when you have these purposes in continuum, in series, you can tell which one is aim, goal, or objective. Right. So goals are generalized statements of educational intent which portray targets to be reached. And we say they are written in more specific behavioral terms than the way aims are stated. So they are more specific than aims. We have said that aims are broad. Now goals are more specific than aims. But goals are broader than objectives. Goals are broader than objectives. Right. Now, let's go to objectives. Objectives are short-term purposes that are stated to be achieved in the shortest possible time within a lesson period. So, objectives are purposes that are to be attained within a lesson period in curriculum. That is what objectives are. They are specific statements of educational intent which delineate specific outcomes. And so, you may have example like the learner will be able to read a page, quite specific. The learner can write a sentence, sing a song, quite specific. Now, if we put objectives, goals, and aims into a continuum, then in English language, we learn something about word, comparative, and then superlative. That is what could be used to apply to the way these purposes are stated. So the word here will be the objectives. Then the comparative will be goals. And then the superlative will be aims. So we say good, better, best. So good will be, for example, the objectives. Better will be the goals. Best will be aims. So you see it's a sense. However, you see that objectives, in stating objectives, because they are specific, we have a criteria for stating them, especially in curriculum. So I must emphasize again that the way we state purposes in curriculum and teaching are quite different from the way purposes are stated in life. Why? Because somebody's aim in life could be another person's goal or objective. So today, somebody may say that my aim is to graduate from UW. That could be somebody's aim. But I can also assure you that that could be somebody's goal, or it could be somebody's objective, depending on the current position of the person in life. So it is important that we distinguish or we separate the way purposes are stated in life from the way they are stated in curriculum and teaching. So when you are stating objectives in curriculum and teaching, they are supposed to be SMART. SMART is an abbreviation of the criteria for judging the appropriateness of objectives. Don't forget that objectives are also called the indicators in today's curricular terms. Right. So SMART, as in the S-M-A-R-T, SMART. The objective must be SMART, such that the S stands for, it should be specific. So the objectives are to be specific. The learner will be able to state two relevance or two roles of mobile phones. He said state, very specific. State. So it is not explanation, it is not defining, it is state, quite specific. Then again, after the S, we have M, which is measurable. The objective should be measurable. So the example I gave, state 3 relevant roles of the mobile phone. So here we said 3. So we are measuring 3 roles. We have said 3, and so that is what we are expecting. It should be measurable. The objective should be measurable. And we said it should be states. So stating 3, it could easily be measured. When we done with the lesson and the student is able to state 3, everybody could see that the student or learner has been able to state 3 objectives or 3 of the roles. Right. Then the next abbreviation is A, because we are dealing with SMART, S-M-A. So the A is, the objective should be achievable. The A stands for achievable. The objective should be achievable, meaning that it should be something that can be attained by the learner within the time that is supposed to be delivered. Right. Then the next one is that the objective, the R. The R there means that the objective should be relevant. Please, listeners, that R sometimes is misconstrued as realistic. Please, it is not realistic. The R stands for relevance. The objective must be relevant. So you see, we are not using realistic because if the objective is specific, if it is measurable, and it is achievable, it is realistic. But that cannot be a criteria. What we are using is that it should be relevant. It should be useful. That is the R. And then finally, T. The objective should be time-bound, meaning that the objective should be able to be achieved within the specified lesson period. Now, I am doing this to let you know that objectives are the most specific of all the purposes that could be stated in curriculum development. So, objectives are the most specific. From there, we go to goals, which are broader than the objectives. And their purposes, they are supposed to be attained, the goals are supposed to be attained within the medium term. Right. And then the aims are attained in the long term. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Radio Winnipeg 98.3 FM. We are having radio lecture for the course EDC 111, the school curriculum, social change, and national development. The lines that you need to keep is 050-392-3158. It is the same for phone calls, WhatsApp, and SMS. And so when they are activated, kindly note your points, and when they are activated, you bring them for us to discuss them here. Right. So I am going to give you one example of a life purpose, how a purpose could be stated. In the one that I'm saying that in life. And then I'll give another example in curriculum, and you will see the difference. So the first one here is about ordinary life, stating purpose in ordinary life. So in stating purpose, we start from the general one, the broader one, or the broadest. That is aim. Aim. Because you need to know where you are going. Other than that, any route leads you to anywhere. So you must have the focus or your aim before you begin working towards it. So the first thing you need to state is the aim. In life, the aim. So the aim, for example, could be, I want to be a successful person in future. I want to be a successful person in future. Now, if you look at this statement carefully, you will see that there is a word there that is amorphous. Amorphous in the sense that it is not directly measurable. You cannot really tell how successful a person is. How do you distinguish between, how do you measure success? What do you need to have for us to say that you are successful? So mostly when you are successful, you yourself, you don't even believe that you are successful. You want more. So I want to be a successful person in future is an aim. It cannot be attained in a day, cannot be attained in months, and even in years. You need more time, more years to be able to attain them. So that is clearly a life aim. Right. Then we go to goal. A typical example of a goal in this case, in life, could be, I want to graduate from my bachelor's program next year. That is a life goal. You are setting a goal. So you want to be successful in future. But before you could be successful in future, you want to graduate with a bachelor's degree next year. That is a goal. And the objective could be, I want to get grade A in the course EDC 111. So you see the graduation, you see the way it is ascending or descending from objective. You see that it is quite specific. I want to get grade A in the course EDC 111. And this can be attained within this semester. If you compare that to the goal, which is I want to graduate from a bachelor's degree, perhaps you are in level 100. Graduating from bachelor's degree will take you three more years from now. So that can be a goal in life. Then the longest of them all is the aim, which is I want to be a successful person in future. Good. So something like this, you see that we state the aim first, then break it down into goals before you break it down further into objectives. Then when you are trying to work towards achieving them, you begin achieving them from the objectives towards the goals. Right. So this is a typical example of life purpose. Now let's take something in curriculum and teaching. Right. So an aim of a curriculum, let's say a PE curriculum, may be this: that the student will be able to improve his or her motor skills. The student will be able to improve his or her motor skills. Here, you see that improve is relative. It's amorphous. How do you measure improvement? It looks too vague, because what is your benchmark for the improvement? How will you determine that this is, so if maybe you improve by 1% or 2%, which one do you want to accept? So you see that it is quite vague. And we are talking about that the student will be able to improve his or her motor skills. When you look at the quantum of work or the task being improving motor skills has many. They involve all that we can use our muscles, our physical strength to do. So, is it about heading, running, shaking hands, acrobatics? Which one? So you see that there are many. And so for you to improve your motor skills, having this as an object, as a purpose, can only be put under aim. And that is why in curriculum, when you state a purpose, a good teacher or a curriculum expert could tell you that this is not objective, this is not goal, well, rather it is aim. Why? Because the words used in formulating the purpose could tell where it belongs. Right. So this is not, in curriculum, the statement of the aim, goals, and objectives is not like in real life stating purposes. Because if you do in life, that one, as I said earlier, somebody's goal can be somebody's aim. But in curriculum, an aim is an aim. A goal is a goal. An objective is an objective because there's a criteria for doing so. And I've given you the criteria for stating that of objectives. SMART. SMART, S-M-A-R-T. Right. But for aim, the example here is student will be able to improve his or her motor skills. And I said improve is relative. And the motor skills involve so many things. So many things that you can use your muscles to do to demonstrate that you have motor skills. Which of them? Right. So you being able to improve motor skills can only be seen in the long run. Maybe after your completion of your 4-year program or a 2-year or 3-year program. Right. So that is aim. Now let's go to goal. So we have students will be able to demonstrate gross motor functions through skills like hopping, skipping, and running. So look at this carefully. That is the goal. Students will be able to demonstrate gross motor functions through skills like hopping, skipping, and running. Why are we saying this is a goal? It is a goal because when you compare this with the aim we stated, which is that student will be able to improve his or motor skill, you can see that this one is it is more specific than the earlier one, which is the aim. Because here, we have specified the motor skills that we are interested in, being hopping, skipping, and running. So when you are done with the program or the activity, and we want to check whether we have attained our goal or not, we are looking forward to attain to 3 things: hopping, skipping, running. But in the case of aims, it is motor skills, so we don't know which one. So we can see that you have improved your general motor skills only in the long run when you are done with the program, and so we are doing a general assessment. Right. Now, again, this is a goal that students will be able to demonstrate gross motor function through skills like hopping, skipping, and running. It is a goal because it still needs to be more specific for it to be called objectives. Why? We have multiple activities here, multiple skills here. Hopping is one of them. Skipping is one of them. Running is one of them. So at the end of the day, if the learner finishes and is able to hop but not able to skip, will you say you have achieved it? So definitely this cannot be an objective. It can be a goal because you need more time to achieve these 3. Right. Now let's look at how the objective could be stated in this case. So the objective could be stated like this. Student will be able to hop 3 steps. So you see here, we are specific. Students will be able to hop 3 steps. It is the most specific of all the 3 that I have mentioned so far. Now, here you see that our attention is on hopping. And even the hopping, we have even limited it to a certain number. And what is the number? 3. So you could see that that student will be able to hop 3 steps. It is specific, it is measurable, it is achievable, it is relevant, and it is time-bound. Within the lesson, say a 40 minutes lesson, 20-minute lesson, or an hour lesson, you can achieve this purpose, being the objectives. Right. So that is the distinction among aims, goals, and objectives. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Radio Winnie Bay 98.3 FM, and we are having a lecture for the course EDC 111, the School Curriculum, Social Change, and National Development. Today, the topic we are treating is the basic components of the school curriculum. In other words, you may see it in other books like the basic elements of the school curriculum. It's the same thing. Basic elements, basic components, they are the same thing. And we said the basic components are purpose, content, learning experiences, and evaluation. So far, we have dealt with purpose, and we are about to conclude it. And the number still remains 0503923158. So when they are activated, kindly share your views. Right. So we are moving on. In curriculum, we are very much interested in the purpose, especially the most specific one, being the objectives. The reason is that it is the smallest unit of the purpose. And it is what can be attained gradually in the classroom for us to see that we are attaining the goals through which we can attain the aims. So this implies that if you miss the objectives, you are missing the goals, and ultimately you will miss the aims. And so we don't play with the statement of objectives in curriculum and teaching. We don't play with it. And therefore, it is imperative, it is very important that when you are stating your objectives, you remember that the objectives are what will be used to develop the individual in the classroom. And in developing the individual, you don't concentrate on one aspect or one domain of learning. You concentrate on the entirety of the learner, the totality of the learner. So what is the totality of the learner? They are within the learning domains. For example, you may set objectives to target the mind or the brain, what we call intellect. So when you set your objectives to target the intellect or the cognitive domain, we say that those objectives are intellectual objectives. In other words, you may say they are cognitive objectives. So those objectives target the cognitive abilities of the learner, like reading, narrating a text, describing a process, and so on and so forth. In most cases, intellectual or cognitive objectives are many, and they are profound, they are common in all subjects than others. And so when you look at the teacher's learning plan, you see that most of the objectives target the mind or the intellect. So we say that is the head. So your lesson objectives might target the head. And in the head, we have the mind, the brain, which is your intellect or your cognition. Right. So that is the first form of objectives, intellectual objective or cognitive objective. The second objective, which your purpose must cover, or your objective must cover, has to do with emotional or affective objectives. Now, we don't go to school to be trained mentally alone or to be intellectually sharpened. We don't go to school for only cognitive ability development. We go to school to be developed wholly. And talking about wholly, it includes developing your emotions, your interest, your affection, compassion, the thing that make you happy and so on. affection, very important. So that once you complete school, you will not be the one who, when you lose in a game or in an event, then that is all. You throw your hands in despair. Your objectives must also target our emotional aspects so that we will learn as students how to celebrate even loss, how to celebrate failure, how to manage failure. Because life is not only about success, it includes failure. Failure is there to build us. And so if you have not gone through failure or loss before, it means that you have not been prepared enough for real life. And so once we have learners in our class, your lesson objective or your learning objective must also target developing the learner's emotional or affective domain. And so those objectives are called emotional or affective objectives. Emotional objectives or affective objectives. Right. Then we have the third domain or the third area of the human that the objectives must cover. And that has to do with the use or the exercise of our muscles, what we call physical objectives or psychomotor objectives. So your objective, the psychomotor or physical objectives, would develop what we normally say our hands. The hands are metaphorical. We use the hand to represent our use or exercise of our muscles to do things. That is also very important. And therefore, your objectives must also cover the development of our physical being or psychomotor or our muscles. Why is this so? It is said that a healthy mind rests or lives in a healthy body. And so you cannot say you have been educated formally and yet you have you don't have the ability to make use of your physical or your muscles. No matter how you are, whether you have some special needs, so maybe you have a problem with your limbs or your hands, your eyes or your ears, it doesn't matter. Still, you can make use, you can exercise, you can make use of your muscles in one way or the other. Whatever you can do with whatever you have must be harnessed by education through the curriculum. And so if you are setting objectives, you must also set objectives to target the development of those aspects. Playing football, running, riding. These things are part of life, and your objectives must cover them. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the forms of the objectives. And they are very important that your objectives cover these three: intellectual or cognitive objectives, emotional or affective objectives, physical or psychomotor objectives. Thank you. Right. So what it means is that we are done with the purpose of the curriculum. Right. Now we will move on to look at the content, the second component of the school curriculum, the second basic component of the school curriculum. The content or the subject matter has to do with the facts, the concepts, the generalizations, those principles and theories that make up the subject that you are studying. That is the subject matter or the content. It is actually what gives you the knowledge in the area that you are mastering or the subject in which you are taking as your major or minor. So the facts, the concept, generalizations, principles, theories, and so on and so forth, the values and the rest within the curriculum are the subject matter. They are what gives you what we call hard skills. Hard skills. That is, if you are studying geography, what do you need to have for us to say that indeed you are a product of the program geography. Those things, the knowledge of those things, your ability to use those things, the subject matter gives you the content. Right. So the subject matter answers the question, the what or what. Don't forget that when we're talking about the purpose, we said it answers the question, why. In the case of content, it answers the question, what. So if you are going to develop a curriculum, the first question you pose is, why this curriculum? Or why do we have to develop a curriculum like this? When you answer that question, the next question that will come to mind is, so what do we put together to give us that curriculum? So that is why we say the what of the curriculum is the content. It is basically the medium through which the objectives are accomplished. What do we mean? For you to be able to attain the objectives, you need to go through the content. You need to get the content in order to demonstrate your achievement of the objectives. And so the content is very, very important. It has a direct link with the purpose, being the objectives. Right. So the content can be in two forms. The content can be formal content or informal content. Formal content or informal content. So the formal content refers to those topics or areas that are structured and are found in the course outline, on the course outline, or in the syllabus, or they could be found in the books. Those are the formal content, and they are what should give you the manifest outcome of education. Don't forget that we have already dealt with manifest function of education and latent function of education. The formal content will give you manifest outcome of education. So it will give you the skills, the hard skills, like ability to read, ability to calculate, and so on and so forth. So the topics, if it is English language, we're looking at what comes under grammar, what comes together to form comprehension, what comes together to form maybe lesson structure, and so on and so forth. That is the content. And that is the formal content. What reflects on the course outline? What are found in the books? What defines a discipline? Those are the formal contents. But we have informal content. Informal content. Any other area, any other content, any other information that you learn other than the formal content, we refer to them as informal content. And so these contents, which we are referring to informal content, they normally come from the co-curriculum and the hidden curriculum. And so we may say that the informal content will give you the latent outcome of education. The latent outcome of education. Because these knowledge and skills and values that are transmitted through co and hidden curricula, they are less structured, and so they cannot be formal content. Right. A typical example is, you are here to study geography. So it is geography that you are studying, but you chose to learn sign language, which is not necessarily part of what you are supposed to learn here, except that it will add to your experience and your relevance in the teaching profession. So your learning of sign language, the content of sign language is informal to you, the one studying geography as a program here, right? Unless the university makes it compulsory that everybody should study sign language, and there's a content, there is an outline for it, and it is being taught, and so you are taking it as a course, a formal one, then that one it becomes formal. But once you are taking it outside your area, it becomes informal, right? You have learned respect, obedience. You have learned to be time conscious in this university through some means. The content, the information, the events, the activities that gave you the knowledge of time consciousness and so on and so forth, they are informal. They may not be part of the content, the formal content, the structured content that you're supposed to take in your program, say home economics or agric or something like that. Right. So these are the two forms of content. You must note that in terms of the forms or the types of content, we do not have anything like non-formal content. Please note it. There is nothing like non-formal content. What we have are formal content and informal content. Right. Thank you very much. And this is Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM. And this is radio lecture for the course EDC 111, the School Curriculum, Social Change and National Development. The lines are 0503923158. Same for WhatsApp, SMS, and so on and so forth. So you can text your messages through that. It will be activated soon so that you phone through and then we interact. Kindly write your questions, your comments, and contributions down so that you don't forget. Okay. So we are done with the first two components of the school curriculum, being purpose, and we said purpose can be stated as aim, goals, and objectives. And we said purpose, the smallest unit of the purpose, being the objectives, is so important because it is what we begin to attain, what we achieve in the classroom, through which we attain the goal and the aims. And so we said that in stating your purpose, which here we're talking about the objectives, you must make sure that your objectives cover intellectual or cognitive, emotional or affective, psychomotor or physical domains. And then we came to content. We said that content answers the question, the what, or what is to be put together to give us that curriculum. Whilst purpose answers the question, why. We said content has two forms, formal content and informal content. Now, we want to move on to look at the third component or elements of the school curriculum, the four basic elements, the third one. The third component of the school curriculum is learning experiences. Learning experiences. Learning experiences has to do with the interaction between learners and external conditions in the environment to which they can react. What you need to understand here is that the learning experiences include everything that will aid you to learn or through which you learn the content. And that means that anything in the school environment, within the classroom or elsewhere in the school environment, through which you learn is a learning experience. So it teaches you. Everything in the environment teaches. And that is why Tyler says that the interaction between learners and the external conditions in the environment to which they can react is what is called learned experiences. That interaction, that experience. Right. These experiences includes the methods of teaching, the techniques, the strategies that our teachers use to teach us. So we can be talking about discussion, role play, field trip, all the tried and tested methods of teaching are part of learning experiences. Now, the learning experiences answers the question, how? So we say the how of the curriculum is the learning experiences. The how of the curriculum is learning experiences. Why? Because it is through the learning experiences that we attain the content in order to realize the objectives or the purposes. So the learning experiences are very important. They refer to all the time-tested methods, the inquiry approaches, and other emerging strategies that complement teaching and learning in this contemporary time. So what it means is that anything in the school that teaches you is giving you a learning experience. Right. And that is why we must be very, very cautious about what goes on in the school. What goes on in the school, everything there teaches. And if you remember the way people have defined curriculum, how people have defined education, it gives you the indication that indeed anything that happens in the school environment is a learning experiences for the learner. Once the learner experienced, once the learner got into it or interacted with it or experienced it, it teaches the learner. Right. And we must say that this includes what happens in the classroom, being the interaction between the teacher and the learner, the interaction between the teacher, the learner and the books, the textbooks, the learner and the teaching learning materials, the interaction between the learner and the learner-learner interactions. They are all means by which we learn the content. We call that experience learning experiences. Great. So the learning experiences also has forms. And for the learning experiences, we have 3 forms or 3 types of learning experiences. Whilst content has 2 types or 2 forms, being formal content and informal content. When we come to learning experiences, we have 3, being formal learning experiences, non-formal learning experiences, and informal learning experiences. We want to explain each of these. What do we mean by formal learning experiences? Don't forget that we said everything in the school environment that the learner can react to teaches the learner. And so the learner learns from everything he or she comes in contact with. What it means is that in the classroom, the interaction between the teacher and the learner is one of the learning experiences. Now, those activities, events that have been spelled out in the curriculum, in the syllabus, in the course outline, on the course outline, that are supposed to be used to treat the content, they are the formal learning experiences. Why? Because they are structured, they are formalized, they are recognized by the institution or in that course that this is how this course is supposed to be taught. So in the university, we use lectures. In the university, we use lectures. Lecture is a formal learning experience. We are using field trip and other ways of teaching that have been structured, recognized, and used in teaching. They are formal learning experiences. Right. Now I want to go and explain the informal learning experiences. The informal learning experiences are those unstructured ways by which we treat the content. Now, don't forget that the content here is not only the formal content, but it can also be the informal content. Now, these informal learning experiences, they are unstructured and they happen outside the classroom mostly. So, maybe I normally cite this example. When you read a particular text and you don't remember it, you may choose to give the book or the text to a friend to read it to your hearing so that through that you could remember. That is not how we teach in the university. That is not a formal way of teaching. That is your own ingenuity, your own way by which you think it helps you to learn. That is informal. So all the unstructured, self-identified ways of learning the content can be classified as informal learning experiences. They normally don't happen in the classroom because in the classroom only the formal ones are used. But it could happen that in the absence of the teacher, or even when the teacher is present, there may be some activities that you may go through to learn the content that may not be a formal learning experience. And in that sense, that will fall under or a hidden or something like that. That is not recognized. I must say that informal learning experiences are not common in the classroom. They are common outside the classroom. Right. Then let's take non-formal learning experiences. The non-formal learning experiences are emerging. They are now coming and they are related to technology. It is through technology and modernity that we are having these new ways of learning content. So, for example, you want to learn how to type. You may be using Mavis Beacon. Mavis Beacon is behaving like a real teacher, teaching you, praising you, motivating you to do the typing. So you see that Mavis Beacon behaves like a real teacher, taking you through the typing process. That is why it is called non-formal, because it behaves like a formal way of teaching. You may be interacting with AI, maybe ChatGPT. So whilst you interact with it, it gives you feedback. That kind of interaction through which you learn a content, whether formal or informal content, is non-formal. Non-formal because the interaction between you and a ChatGPT is like a teacher and a learner. So you pose a question, you get a response. And it is the way you are posing the question shows that the ChatGPT is more experienced, more knowledgeable than you, the one asking the question. You might have some prior knowledge. It's normal in teaching. And so what happened between you and ChatGPT is a non-formal learning experience, just like the way you use Mavis Beacon to learn how to type. Right. So the use of AI, robots, and so on and so forth, these technologically based approaches of learning in our schools, most of them are non-formal. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are done with the first three of the elements of the school curriculum, the basic component of the school curriculum. And we are left with the last one, being evaluation. And so, at this stage, we will activate the phone lines. Kindly, you can phone and bring your questions, your contributions, so that we interact. 050-392-3158. That is the studio line. You can use that to send your WhatsApp, your SMS. We are also on Instagram, Radio Winnipeg, 98.3 FM. We are on Facebook, and so you have a lot of spaces to send your messages. So we are waiting for your messages and calls. Right, so as we wait, let's continue and complete the last component of the school curriculum, being evaluation. That is the last basic or common element of the school curriculum, evaluation. Right, so we said that the purpose of the curriculum is the first component, and it answers the question, why the curriculum? Why? The second is the content, and it answers the question, what? What should be put together? What is the content? What should be put together to give the content in order to achieve the purpose? Then, in order to achieve or to attain the content, you must go through some activities or process. That process you have to go through in order to attain the content, and for that matter, achieve the purpose, is what we call learning experiences. And it answers the question, how? So how do we get the content into the learner, or for the learner to attain? That is how. So the how of the curriculum is learning experiences. Now, we are looking at evaluation, and it has to do with checking to see whether the curriculum is functioning well. So it is about the formal way to determine the quality, effectiveness, or the value of a program, a curriculum program, or a program, the process of the implementation of the curriculum, or the products of the curriculum. So here, the means by which we tell whether the curriculum is quality, is effective, in terms of its purpose, content, learning experiences, that is what we refer to as evaluation. So it is a process of determining or gauging the extent to which the purposes stated have been met. And therefore, it answers the question, to what extent? To what extent? So if you hear the question, to what extent of the curriculum, it refers to evaluation. Right. Before you evaluate, you must assess. So you must collect information, you must gather information in order to say that you, based on which you can judge that indeed the curriculum is good or not good. And we have various ways of doing this. And we are not ready to go into the models. But just to mention one for you is the CIPP model, which is used to check whether the curriculum, the program, the process, the product is in line with the purpose of the curriculum. Right. In terms of evaluation, we can have it also in two forms. We have internal evaluation and external evaluation. The internal evaluation is normally initiated and conducted by units, agencies, departments, and schools for their own respective purposes. So we may have this university evaluating its programs. That will be described as internal evaluation. So the high school, the JHS, they may check to see whether the curriculum they are implementing are working well within their school. And that is internal evaluation. Right. The external evaluation normally is sanctioned by an external body or agency, say GES, NACA, or NTC, or GTECH, saying that we are coming to evaluate your program. In that sense, the purpose of doing so may not be the same. So they may be coming from outside the institution to check whether the curriculum is performing its functions as stipulated in its development or its program content or program document. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is all about the components, the basic components of the curriculum that you need to know at this level of your education. We have been talking about the basic components, and before I started, I said that by the time I complete, I expect that you'll be able to identify the 4 basic elements of the school curriculum, and that by the time I am done, you'll be able to explain what each of the components constitutes. And so by now, I expect that you have all these at your fingertips. Right. There is a call, so let's listen. Hello? Hello, caller, your name and your department. Hello? Kindly raise your voice a little. Kindly project your voice a little. We can't hear you well. Sorry, it looks like your voice is still low. Hello? All right. So the line is still 050-392-3158. Kindly phone through and let's call. Let's talk. Kindly also share your messages through the same line, WhatsApp, SMS, and so on. Right. So we are waiting for you. Bring your messages and your phone calls. Yeah. So we are expecting more calls from you because this topic is very important for your assessment. You have taken the mid-semester exams and you saw some of them flying through here and there. Kindly phone through and let's talk. Right. So just to summarize, today what we did is to present to you the basic components of the school curriculum. And we saw that the components of the school curriculum are many, but there are some that are basic. They are common and can be seen in every curriculum or every good course outline. So, and we said there are 4, being purpose, content, learning experiences, and evaluation. We went through the components, each of them, to identify the forms and what each one constitutes. We saw that the purpose can be stated in 3 ways: aims, goals, and objectives. And we said objectives are very important, and so there is normally more attention there because the purpose of the curriculum at the teacher level is the objectives. And we said in formulating them, they must cover the entirety of the learner. Right. So we said we should have intellectual objectives or cognitive objectives, emotional or affective objectives, physical or psychomotor objectives. Then from there, we said that the purpose or the purpose answers the question why. Then we went to the second component, content or subject matter. We said it answers the question what. And we said it is just the principles, the facts, the generalizations that constitute a subject or make up the subject matter or the content of a subject. That is what you need to learn in a particular discipline or subject area. Right. And we said that we have two forms, formal content and informal content. Then from there, we went ahead to look at the third component, being learning experiences. Hello? Okay. Right. So the third component, being learning experiences, we said answers the question how. Is the how of the curriculum. Then we looked at the types of learning experiences. And we saw that we have formal learning experiences, non-formal learning experiences, and informal learning experiences. Then from there, we went to evaluation. We said it is what is used to check or gauge whether the curriculum is functioning or performing its function well or not, the quality of the process, the program, the product, and so on and so forth. And it answers the question to what extent. And we saw that it also has two forms, internal evaluation and then external evaluation. This is what you have to know at this time. Right. So there is a message here. Let's see. It says, good evening, please. I heard CIPP model when you were speaking about the evaluation. Can you please elaborate more on the CIPP model? Well, thank you very much. Yes, that is not part of the content for you. I just mentioned it that it is one of the models for evaluating a curriculum. But to throw more light on it, I may ask you to read on it, but I'll give you what each one stands for. That will help you to read more on it. And it is by Staff Rubin, one curriculum expert called Staff Rubin. One expert in education called Staff Rubin. He used it to evaluate the curriculum. And so the CIPP, the C is context. When you are developing a curriculum, first you must have a context. What are the existing issues? What are the rationales? What were the happenings at the time that led to the development of the curriculum? That is the context. The context. Then the next letter is I, the input. What did you put together to develop the curriculum or to implement the curriculum? The input to implement the curriculum, input, right? So when we are evaluating the curriculum, you must check the context. That is what led, the happenings, the existing issues, the rationale, the happenings at the time that led to the development of the curriculum. You must evaluate the existing curriculum against those days. Other than that, you may not be getting an outcome that answers what were existing before or which led to the development of the new curriculum. So that is the C and the I. So the C is context, the I is input. Then the P, the first P is process. The process is how the means by which the curriculum was delivered or is delivered. So right now we are having a real lecture. It's one of the ways by which we deliver content in the general courses. Right. That is the process. Yeah, so the lecture, all the means by which you learn the content is the process. Then we have the second P, which is product. That has to do with you, the learner. If you want to check how quality the curriculum is, we can check it from the learner, the performance of the learner, the attitude and aptitudes of the learner, the quality of the learner tells the quality of the curriculum. So that is also it. So that is basically the CIPP model. Right. So ladies and gentlemen, at this stage, I would say that we are done. My name is Alex TETTEH, and I've enjoyed coming your way. Next week, we shall meet. Right. Bye-bye.